"Give that dirt bike to my son or get your kids out," my brother snapped after his kid shoved my boy off the $4,800 Yamaha dirt bike I bought him. "He deserves something powerful more than your little nobody," he said. Mom and Dad just watched. I picked up the helmet, walked out, and made one quiet call. By sunrise, my brother was calling from a locked garage lot. The helmet was still rolling when Mac said it. Gage had been sitting on the Yamaha TTR 125 in my parents' driveway with his left foot on the kickstand and his hands resting on the grips the way I taught him. Loose, thumbs over the bars, weight centered. He was 10 years old, and the bike was 2 weeks new, and he had not even started the engine yet. He was just sitting on it, feeling the weight of it beneath him. The seat was too tall for his legs to reach the ground flat, so he balanced on the balls of his feet with the kickstand holding the lean, and his helmet was on and buckled, and his back was straight, and for one quiet moment in my parents' driveway on a Saturday afternoon in February, my son looked like a boy who had been given something good. Tate came off the porch at a run, 12 years old, 40 pounds heavier than Gage and moving fast. He grabbed the handlebar with one hand and shoved Gage's shoulder with the other, and Gage went sideways off the seat and hit the concrete with his elbow and his hip, and the helmet cracked against the driveway and the bike tipped the other direction and landed on its side with the mirror folding under the engine guard. The helmet rolled 3 feet and stopped against the front tire of my father's truck. Tate climbed onto the bike before Gage had finished standing up. "Give that dirt bike to my son or get your kids out." Mac was standing at the edge of the driveway with his arms crossed and his chin tilted the way it tilts when he has decided something is his. "He deserves something powerful more than your little nobody." Gage was on his knees. His elbow was scraped and bleeding through his shirt sleeve. He did not cry. He looked at me, and he looked at the bike, and he looked at Tate sitting on it, and he pressed his lips together the way Danny used to press his lips together when something was unfair, and he had decided not to say anything about it. My mother Patsy was on the porch with a glass of sweet tea. She took a sip. My father Dutch was in the folding chair beside her. He adjusted his cap. Shelby, Mac's wife, was in the doorway scrolling her phone. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody told Tate to get off the bike. Nobody helped Gage up. Mac kept going. He always keeps going. Danny left you with nothing but bills and a scared little boy who cannot even hold a handlebar. You weld pipes in a shed and you think buying him a $4,800 toy makes you a good parent? He is growing up soft because there is no man in that house. My kid has a father. Yours has a mother who smells like slag and thinks a dirt bike makes up for it. He is a nobody. Your whole house is nobody. Dutch adjusted his cap again. Patsy sipped her tea. Shelby did not look up. I walked to the driveway. I did not walk to Mac. I walked to the helmet, the one that had rolled against Dutch's tire, and I picked it up, and I checked the shell for cracks, and I unbuckled the chin strap, and I looked at the padding inside where Gage's head had been 30 seconds ago, and I held it against my side. Then I took Gage's hand. I pulled him up. His elbow was bleeding down his forearm, and the blood had mixed with the concrete dust and turned orange. I walked him to my truck. I buckled him in. Danny's baseball glove was in the bat bag behind the passenger seat, where it always is. A worn Rawlings infielder's glove with cracked leather at the pocket and frayed lacing at the thumb. Danny played second base in a rec league until the accident took him 3 years ago. The glove went to Gage. Gage wore it to his first Little League game 8 months after his father died and caught a fly ball on the third pitch and held the ball up and looked at me and looked at the sky and looked at the ball again. Renee Calhoun was sitting next to me in the bleachers that day. She has been my best friend since we were 16, and she was the one who sat with Gage in the hospital hallway the night Danny died while I was in the room watching them turn the machines off. She saw Gage catch that ball, and she said, "That is Danny's arm, right there." I carry that sentence the way Gage carries the glove. In every bag, to every game. Always, I did not look at Mac when I backed out of the driveway. I did not look at my parents. I looked at Gage in the rearview mirror. He had his bleeding elbow pressed against his shirt and his other hand on the bat bag, fingers resting on the zipper near the pocket where the glove sits. "Mom, is the bike okay?" "The bike is fine. Is my helmet cracked?" "No." He was quiet for 10 seconds. Then Tate did not even ask. No, he did not. What Mac did not know, as he climbed off the Yamaha and walked back to the porch where our parents sat and said nothing, was that I had been building a folder for 4 months. Not because of the shove, not because of the word nobody, because of an invoice I found in Bay 5 of my own compound on a Sunday in October while Gage was shooting hoops against the garage wall. If you are watching Family Secret Tales for the first time, welcome. This is not a story about a dirt bike. This is a story about a welding compound, a dead husband's glove, and $108,000 my brother stole from inside my own walls. I own Ironside Fabrication. 6 bays, 2 outbuildings, a 14-foot perimeter fence, and a security gate with a 4-digit code. The compound sits on 3 acres outside Henderson, Nevada. I built it. Not with investors, not with a loan officer's blessing, with my hands. I welded the roll-up doors on a Saturday in August, and the sweat dropped onto the steel so fast it sizzled. I fabricated the gate posts and set them in concrete, and I programmed the access code, and I hung the sign that says Ironside over Bay 1, and I stood in the yard on a Tuesday evening with Danny beside me, and he said, "You built a castle." I said, "I built a shop." He said, "Same thing." Danny died 8 months later, March 2023. Car accident on the 215 during a rainstorm. He was 34. Gage was 7. I got the call at the shop. Cal answered the phone because my hands were inside a weld seam and I could not reach it. Cal said, "Sutton, you need to go to the hospital." He did not say why. He did not have to. His voice said it. The funeral was on a Thursday, and by Friday morning I could not feel my hands, not because of the welding, because grief takes your hands first. It takes the strength out of them and leaves the weight. I could not hold a torch for 6 weeks. Cal ran the shop. Renee drove Gage to school every morning and picked him up every afternoon and made him dinner 4 nights a week because I was sitting in Bay 1 at the workbench staring at the steel, and I could not make my fingers close. In April, 1 month after Danny died, Mac called. He had been running an auto body side business out of a rented bay on Decatur, and the landlord raised his rent to $3,200 a month. He needed a cheaper option. He asked if he could use bays 4, 5, and 6 at Ironside, just for a few months, just until he found another space. I said yes. I did not ask for rent. I did not write a lease. I did not set a term. I said yes because Danny had been dead for 28 days, and I could not feel my hands, and Mac was my brother, and I thought family was the thing that would hold me up. That was 3 years ago. Mac never left. Mac never offered rent. Mac never found another space. He moved in his lift, his paint booth, his compressor, his parts shelves, and over $175,000 in vehicle inventory. He put a sign on the wall above Bay 4 that said Prior Auto Body, and he operated a full commercial business inside a compound he did not own, did not lease, and did not pay for. The pattern was older than the bays. When I was 19 and starting my welding apprenticeship, Mac was 16 and wanted a car. Dutch took $2,200 from the family savings account and bought Mac a used Civic. When I asked Dutch to co-sign a $1,500 tool loan for my first MIG welder, he said, "You want to play with torches, you pay for your own toys." I paid for the welder on a credit card at 22% interest. Mac drove the Civic for 3 years and never changed the oil, and Dutch paid for the replacement engine. When I married Danny, Mac told Shelby at the reception loud enough for my aunt to hear, Danny married a woman with bigger arms than him. I give it 2 years. We were married for 9. Danny was the only person in my family who never made a joke about my hands. When Danny died, Mac came to the funeral. He wore sunglasses indoors. He did not speak to Gage. He stood at the back of the church with his phone in his hand, and he left before the reception. Renee stayed. Renee drove Gage home. Renee made him a grilled cheese and sat with him on the couch and watched cartoons until he fell asleep. Mac sent a text 3 days later. "Sorry for your loss. Let me know about the bays whenever." Whenever. Danny had been in the ground for 72 hours, and Mac was already asking about square footage. Mac drives a 2024 Ram Tar X, $82,000 with a Hellcat engine. Shelby's nails are done every 2 weeks. Tate has an Xbox Series X, a 65-inch Samsung in his bedroom, and a quad that costs $6,400 that sits in Dutch's backyard because there is no room at Mac's house since the garage is full of parts that should be at Ironside. Their kitchen has a double oven and a range hood that vents through the roof. Mac posted a video of himself cooking steaks on a cast iron skillet with the caption "Chef Life." Dutch commented, "That is my boy." I drive a 2017 Chevy Colorado with welding slag burns on the passenger seat and a bat bag behind the driver's headrest. My kitchen has one oven and a microwave from 2019 that makes a sound like a bird dying when you press start. But my compound is paid off. My bays are heated. My tools are mine. And I bought my son a $4,800 dirt bike with money I earned cutting steel, not charging strangers rent for a building someone else built. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales if you know what it is like to open the door for family and watch them take the whole house. Cal runs the day-to-day at Ironside when I am on a job. He has been with me since before Danny died. He is 45, quiet, and he does not care about drama. He cares about steel and deadlines and making sure the torch tanks are full by 6 a.m. He is the one who told me in October 2025 that something was off. Sutton. There is a stack of invoices in Bay 5 that do not look like bodywork. I went to Bay 5 on a Sunday afternoon. Gage was outside bouncing a basketball off the south wall of Bay 2. I could hear the rhythm through the steel. Thump, 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 a 10-year-old keeping time while his mother pulled an invoice off a shelf and read it twice, and then read it a third time because the number on it did not make sense. The invoice was from a client named Daryl Hobbs. Bodywork on a 2019 Ram 1500. At the bottom, below the labor and parts, was a line item, facility access fee, $500. Facility access fee. For a facility Mac does not own. For bays he does not rent. For a compound that belongs to me. I went through the rest of the invoices that afternoon. 6 clients. Every one charged $500 per month for facility access. That is $3,000 a month. Mac had been running the fee since September 2023, 6 months after he moved in. 30 months at $3,000. $90,000. And by the time I found the invoices in October 2025, the total was climbing toward $108,000. I almost called Mac that night. The thing that stopped me was the basketball. Gage was still outside, still bouncing, still keeping time against the wall of a building his mother built and his uncle was stealing from. The sound was steady and even, and it reminded me of Danny's heartbeat on the monitor the last night, the flat rhythm before it went flat for good. Gage does not know the sound is the same. I do. I put the invoice in a folder. I put the folder in my desk drawer, and I kept looking. The second thing I found was worse. In November, Mac left his laptop open on the workbench in Bay 4. I was not looking for it. I was looking for a 1/4-inch socket that had rolled off my bench into his area. The laptop screen was on a tax preparation site. Schedule C 2024, Line 20B, rent and lease payments. $21,600. Mac was claiming $1,800 a month in commercial lease payments for bays 4, 5, and 6. Rent he does not pay, for space he does not lease, on a property he does not own. I scrolled back. 2023, $10,800 for a partial year. 2024, $21,600. The third year, 2025, would bring the total to over $64,800 in phantom deductions. That is 3 years of tax fraud built on a lie that has 4 walls and a roll-up door and my name on the deed. The IRS calls it fabrication. I build things with metal. Mac builds things with numbers that do not exist. I photographed every screen. 8 screenshots. I closed the laptop. I found my socket underneath a crescent wrench on the floor where it had rolled, and I went back to Bay 1, and I sat on the welding stool and I looked at my hands. These hands. The ones Mac says smell like slag. The ones Danny said could build anything. The ones that welded every door Mac's clients walk through, and every fence that keeps his inventory safe, and every inch of steel that separates his livelihood from the parking lot. The third thing I found was Dutch. Mac's client records showed 7 jobs for a vehicle registered to Dutch prior. Brake replacement, transmission fluid service, oil changes, tire rotation, and 1 full engine rebuild on Dutch's 2005 F-150. No invoices issued. No payments received. Over 3 years, the parts alone totaled $6,800. Labor at Mac's rate of $85 an hour added another $7,200. $14,000 in free work for my father. Dutch knew. He knew Mac was operating rent-free. He knew because Mac was paying him in brake jobs and engine rebuilds to keep quiet. When Mac said at Christmas last year, "Dad, I will take care of the truck," he was not being generous. He was servicing a contract. Dutch's silence for Mac's wrenches. And both of them sat on the porch and watched Tate shove my son off a bike and said nothing, because the deal was working, and why would you interrupt a deal that is working? I almost drove to Dutch's house the night I found the records. The thing that stopped me was the glove. Not the dirt bike, not the invoices. Danny's glove. It was on Gage's nightstand. He keeps it there. He does not put it in the closet. He does not leave it on the floor. He sets it on the nightstand with the pocket facing up so it looks like a hand waiting to catch something. And every night before he falls asleep, he reaches over and touches the leather once. A boy touching his father's glove in the dark. I watched him do it from the hallway, and I decided I was going to handle this like Danny would have handled it. Quiet, complete, final. In January, I filed to remove Mac's business operations from my property insurance rider. My agent processed it in 4 days. If a client got hurt in Mac's Bay after that date, it was Mac's liability, not mine. Mac did not have commercial insurance. He had never purchased a policy. He had been operating an uninsured auto body business inside my compound for 3 years, and if a lift had dropped a car on someone's foot, the lawsuit would have come to my door and my insurance and my name. I also pulled the county assessor records for comparable commercial bay rentals in the Henderson area. Market rate for 3 bays with power, water, and compressed air, $2,400 a month. 36 months of back rent at market rate, $86,400. I printed the comps. I printed an invoice. I put them in the folder with everything else. Then Gage turned 10. I took him to the Yamaha dealer on Stephanie Street on a Saturday morning. He did not know where we were going. When we pulled into the lot and he saw the rows of bikes, he pressed his face against the window and his breath fogged the glass and he said, "Mom, Mom, Mom," 3 times. Like the word was a motor he was trying to start. The TT R125 was blue and white. $4,800 with tax. Gage walked around it 4 times. He touched the seat. He touched the handlebars. He squatted down and looked at the chain and the sprocket and the exhaust pipe, and he looked up at me and said, "Is this mine?" "It is yours." He did not scream. He did not jump. He put both hands on the grips, and he closed his eyes, and he stood there, like he was memorizing the shape of something good before someone could take it. I bought the bike because my son had not had something new and powerful and his in 3 years. Because Danny would have bought it. Because Gage deserved to sit on something that ran on its own engine and answered to his own throttle and did not come from anyone's leftover pile. I took him to my parents' house that afternoon because I still believed, against 36 years of evidence, that my parents might look at my son on a Yamaha and see a boy who was loved. Mac looked at my son and saw nobody. I did not make the call because of what Mac said in the driveway. I made the call because I had been looking at invoices and tax returns and service records for 4 months, and I had run out of reasons to make excuses for my brother. The shove was the last excuse leaving my body. I called Renee first, from the truck, parked 2 blocks from my parents' house. Gage in the back seat with his elbow wrapped in a napkin from the glove box, his other hand resting on the bat bag zipper. The streetlight was on. A dog was barking somewhere down the block. The normal sounds of a Saturday evening that do not know a man just called a 10-year-old boy a nobody in front of 4 adults who said nothing. Renee answered on the second ring. She always answers on the second ring. She has answered on the second ring every time I have called her since the night Danny died, and she sat in a hospital hallway with a 7-year-old who did not understand why his mother was crying. He called Gage a nobody, I said, in front of Mom and Dad. Tate shoved him off the bike. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. What did Dutch do? He adjusted his cap. 3 seconds of quiet. You gave them 3 years of free rent. Sutton, 3 years. Every bay, every kilowatt, every gallon of water, every cubic foot of compressed air. You gave it to them because Danny died and you thought family was going to hold you up. It did not hold you up. It held you down. You do not owe them the bike, too. I know. Make the call. I know. Make it tonight. I called Cal at 8:47 p.m. He was at home. I could hear a television in the background and the sound of his wife talking to someone in another room. Cal's world is simple and steady, the same way his welds are simple and steady. Change the gate code tonight, effective midnight. Do not give the new code to anyone except me. Copy, Cal, yeah, thank you. Copy, that was the whole conversation. 12 seconds. 1 word from Cal that mattered. The gate code changed at midnight from 4418 to a number Mac will never know. Behind the gate, 3 bays of auto body inventory, a paint booth, a hydraulic lift, 2 compressors, 9 shelving units of parts, and the tools Mac uses to make a living. $175,000 worth of equipment and vehicles locked inside a compound built by the sister he called a slag-smelling nobody. I did not sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the folder open and Danny's glove on the chair beside me where he used to sit, and I drank coffee and I waited for the phone to ring. It rang at 5:38 a.m. 14 missed calls by 7:15. I did not answer any of them. The voicemails moved through 5 stages. Anger first. Number 1, 538 Sutton. The gate is not opening. What did you do to the code? Call me right now. Number 3, 552. I have a customer car in Bay 4 that is due at 9. If that car is not ready, I lose the client. Open the gate. Number 5, 604. This is not funny. If you change the code to make a point, congratulations, you made it. Now change it back. Then confusion. Number 7, 618. I tried every combination. Nothing works. Did Cal change it? Is this about the driveway? Sutton, that was between the kids. This is my business. Then bargaining. Number 9, 633. Okay. I should not have said what I said about Gage. I was frustrated. Tate was out of line. I will talk to him. Just open the gate and we can discuss this. Then threat. Number 11, 647. I swear to God, Sutton, if you do not open this gate, I will call a locksmith and cut your fence. You are holding my property. That is illegal. Then the crack. Number 13, 658. Mac's voice gone thin and stripped of performance. I cannot get to my tools. I cannot get to anything. My whole business is in there. Everything I have is behind that gate. Please call me back. Please. Number 14, 7:14 a.m. was Dutch. Sutton. Your brother is standing outside your property in the dark calling your phone. Whatever this is about, fix it before it gets worse. He is your brother. He is my brother who charged 6 strangers $500 a month to work inside my walls. He is my brother who claimed $64,800 in phantom rent on his taxes. He is my brother who paid our father in free engine work to keep quiet. He is my brother who shoved my son's hand off a handlebar and called him a nobody in front of 4 people who did not flinch. Gage woke up at 6:45. He came into the kitchen with his hair flat on one side and the scab on his elbow already forming, and he said, "Mom, can I have cereal?" I poured him a bowl. He ate it at the table with his feet not touching the floor and Danny's gloves sitting on the chair next to him, because he had carried it from his nightstand to breakfast the way he does every morning. Like a lunchbox, like a companion, like a hand that is still there. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales if you know what it is like to be the person who built the walls everyone else profits from. I was at the compound by 7:30. Bay 1, my bay. The lights were on, the coffee maker was running. Cal was already at his bench prepping stock for a Monday job. He looked at me when I walked in and said, he was here at 5:20. Tried the code 11 times, kicked the gate twice. I watched from the camera. Did he damage anything? No, he kicked sheet metal with sneakers. The gate did not care. At 8:15, Mac's truck came down the access road. He pulled up to the gate and sat there for 40 seconds. Then he got out and walked to the intercom box and pressed the button. I buzzed him in. He walked through the gate and across the yard and into Bay 1. He was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. His eyes were red. His jaw was set. He stopped 6 feet from the workbench where I was standing with a cup of coffee and the folder open in front of me. Open my bays. They are not your bays. I have $175,000 in there. My lift, my booth, my parts. You cannot hold my property hostage. Your property is inside my property. The deed is in my name. The gate is my steel. The fence is my steel. The roll-up doors are my steel. You have been operating inside my compound for 3 years without a lease, without rent, and without insurance. Tell me which part of this is yours. His jaw worked. He changed angles. I will call a lawyer. This is illegal detention of property. Call one. When they ask for your lease, show them the one you do not have. When the ears asks about the $1,800 a month in commercial rent you claimed on your taxes, show them the checks you never wrote. 4 seconds of nothing. His eyes moved to the folder on the bench. What is that? I opened it. The top page was Daryl Hobbs's invoice. The facility access fee circled in red. Below it, 5 more invoices. 6 clients. $500 each. Monthly, 30 months. You charged 6 people $500 a month to work in my building. That is $3,000 a month for 30 months. $90,000 through October. Closer to $108,000 by now. For access to a property you do not own and do not pay for. His face shifted. The anger pulled back like a tide going out, and underneath it was the expression of a man recalculating. Those fees cover utilities and wear. That is standard in shared shop arrangements. There is no shared shop arrangement, Mac. There is no lease. There is no contract. There is no agreement in writing or in speech. You asked to use 3 bays for a few months. That was 3 years ago. You never paid $1, and you charged 6 people for the privilege of using my electricity and my water and my compressed air. He tried the family card, voice lowering into the register he uses when he wants to sound wounded instead of caught. I came to you when I had nothing. You said yes. You said family helps family. And now you are holding my livelihood hostage because my kid pushed your kid on a dirt bike? Your kid shoved my son onto concrete. You called him a nobody. You called me a slag-smelling pipe welder. You said my whole house is nobody. Mom sipped her tea. Dad adjusted his cap. And you had already stolen $108,000 from inside my walls. The dirt bike is not why I changed the code, Mac. The dirt bike is why I stopped making excuses for why I had not changed it sooner. He shifted again. Faster now. The angles were running out. Fine, I will start paying rent. Going forward. Whatever the market rate is. We will formalize it. Get a lease drawn up. This does not have to be a war. You claimed $1,800 a month in commercial rent on your taxes for 3 years. Rent you never paid. That is $64,800 in phantom deductions. You want to formalize the arrangement, Mac? The IRS is going to formalize it for you. His hands gripped the edge of the bench, his breathing shallowed. And Dad? I opened to the service records. 7 jobs. No invoices. Brake replacement, transmission service, engine rebuild. $14,000 in free work over 3 years. That is how you bought his silence. That is why he sat on the porch and watched your son shove mine and said nothing. The deal was working. Dad got his truck fixed. You got your bays. And my son got a scraped elbow and a new word for himself. I almost stopped there. The thing that stopped me from stopping was the bat bag, Gage's bat bag. It was in the truck outside, the glove inside it, Danny's glove. The leather cracked at the pocket, and the lacing frayed at the thumb, and the whole weight of it is maybe 12 ounces, but it carries everything Danny left behind in a shape my son can hold. I slid the invoice across the workbench. Danny's glove is in Gage's bag right now. Your inventory is in my garage. Tell me again who has nothing. Mac's right hand went to the edge of the bench and gripped. His knuckles turned white against the steel. His breathing changed, not faster but shallower. The kind of breathing that happens when your diaphragm stops cooperating because your brain has just received information it cannot process and return. His left eye twitched once. The skin around his mouth went tight and dry. He looked at the folder, and he looked at the invoices, and he looked at the bay doors behind me, the ones I welded on a Saturday in August, the ones that separate his entire livelihood from the outside world by 3 inches of steel and a 4-digit code he no longer knows. He turned and walked out. He did not pick up the invoice. He did not close the folder. He walked across the yard and through the gate and got in his truck and sat there for 6 minutes. Cal watched on the camera. I watched from bay 1. Neither of us said a word. On Wednesday, Mac brought Tate to my front door. Tate was in his school uniform. His hair was combed. Mac stood behind him with his hands in his pockets in the specific posture of a man who has rehearsed a child. Tate looked at the mat and said, "Aunt Sutton, please let Dad get his tools. He says he cannot work without them." I looked at Tate. 12 years old. The boy who shoved my son off a bike without asking. The boy who climbed on and sat there while Gage bled on the concrete. He was not a bad kid. He was a coached kid, standing on my porch repeating words his father put in his mouth, the way his father put phantom rent on his taxes. I looked at Mac behind him. "Tate, your dad charged 6 people rent for a building he does not own. Ask him where that money went." I closed the door. In February, I filed heirs form 3949, phantom commercial lease deductions. 3 tax years. $64,800 in fabricated expenses claimed against a property with no lease agreement, no rent payments, and no landlord-tenant relationship. The form took 14 minutes. I filed it from the same desk where the folder sat. The fallout came the way steel cools, slowly and then all at once. Mac rented a 10 by 15 storage unit on Boulder Highway for $285 a month. He moved what he could carry in 3 truckloads, small tools, hand sanders, boxes of filters and fittings, a portable compressor the size of a mini fridge. The paint booth did not fit. It is 8 feet tall and 12 feet deep, and it sits in Bay 5 behind a door he cannot open. The hydraulic lift did not move. It is bolted to the concrete floor I poured. 3 body shop clients who needed indoor spray work waited 2 weeks, then took their vehicles to a competitor on Warm Springs Road. A 4th client, a woman with a 2021 Camaro that needed a full quarter panel repair, pulled the job entirely and posted a 1-star review on Google, showed up and the shop was locked. Owner will not return calls. Max monthly revenue dropped from $8,500 to $3,200. He posted on Facebook that he was relocating to a larger facility with expanded capabilities. Nobody commented. Nobody liked it. The post sat for 3 days with 0 engagement, which on Facebook is the digital version of an empty chair at a banquet table. The Little League Awards banquet was held at the Henderson Community Center in March. 200 folding chairs. Paper tablecloths. A trophy table at the front with small gold figures frozen in mid-swing. Gage won Most Improved. He walked to the front in his jersey with Danny's glove tucked under his arm because he takes it everywhere, and he shook Coach Waller's hand and held up the small trophy and found me in the second row and smiled. Renee was next to me. She reached over and squeezed my hand once, the way Gage squeezes mine. 1 squeeze. Mac walked in late. Tate was on the same team. Mac approached the entrance where Coach Waller was greeting families. Coach Waller had heard the story from 2 parents and a mother who runs the concession stand. Mac extended his hand. Waller looked at it, turned his shoulder, and greeted the family behind Mac with a handshake and a full sentence. Mac lowered his hand. He put it in his pocket. He walked to a table near the water cooler. A woman named Mrs. Denning, whose son plays shortstop, was sitting at the same table with a plate of cake. She glanced at Mac, looked at the plate, picked up the plate and her purse and her jacket, and moved to the next table. She did not hurry. She did not explain. She just left. The 2 chairs on either side of Mac stayed empty for the rest of the evening. Tate received a participation ribbon. Mac clapped twice. Small claps, hands barely touching. Then he put his hands in his lap and stared at the trophy table where his nephew's award sat next to his son's ribbon, and the difference between them was the same difference between a compound with 6 bays and a storage unit with a flickering light. Dutch's F-150 broke down in April. Timing chain. The kind of repair Mac used to handle for free in Bay 5 on a Saturday morning, parts pulled from inventory, labor billed to nowhere. Dutch called Mac. Mac said, "I do not have a shop, Dad. I do not have a lift. I am working out of a storage unit." Dutch called a mechanic on Eastern Avenue. The estimate was $4,200. He paid it with a credit card he had not used in 2 years. His hand shook when he signed the receipt. The mechanic told a customer at the counter, who told Mrs. Denning's husband, who told Mrs. Denning, the story traveled the way stories travel in Henderson. Quietly, by noon. The deal was broken. The silence was no longer being purchased, and Dutch, for the first time in 3 years, understood what things cost when nobody is paying for them with someone else's steel. Here is the part that stays with you long after the numbers and the invoices and the gate codes are done. Mac went to the storage unit 3 times in April. Each time he reorganized the same shelf. Brake rotors on the left, calipers in the middle, pads and hardware kits on the right. Then he moved the rotors to the right and the pads to the left and stood back and looked at it and moved them again. A man rearranging parts in a 10 by 15 box because the 3-bay compound he used to work in is on the other side of a gate he cannot open. Behind doors he did not weld. Inside walls he did not build. The fluorescent tube above the shelf buzzed and flickered, and he stood under it with his hands at his sides, and he did not look like a man planning his next move. He looked like a man who had run out of shelves to rearrange. Shelby stopped coming to Pryor family dinners in May. She told Patsy she was busy. She was not busy. She was sitting in the apartment she and Mac had moved into on Lake Mead Boulevard after the house refinance fell through, because the revenue was gone and the $108,000 in facility fees had been spent on trucks and tools and a lifestyle that looked like success and turned out to be a line item on someone else's property. She told a neighbor at the apartment complex, "I did not know the shop was not his. He told me he leased it. He told me the payments were current." The neighbor did not know Sutton, but she knew the tone. Everybody knows the tone of a woman finding out the ground she was standing on belongs to somebody else. The compound is mine. On a Saturday morning in May, I opened Bay 1 at 5:30 a.m. The air was still cool, and the coffee maker was running, and the steel on the bench was cold under my palms. I pushed my welding mask up on my forehead, and I wrapped my hands around a tin mug, and I drank coffee the way Danny used to drink it, standing, looking at nothing, letting the heat settle. Gage came through the side door at 6:15. He was carrying the bat bag. He set it on the floor and pulled out Danny's glove and sat on an overturned bucket near the door and started punching the pocket, the steady rhythm of leather hitting leather, the sound a glove makes when a boy is keeping it soft for a season that has not started yet. Morning light came through the roll-up door, and it crossed the concrete floor, and it reached Gage's shoes and climbed his legs and lit the glove in his hand, so the old leather glowed the color of rust and honey. The gate was closed, the code was mine, the steel was mine, the fence and the doors and the sign that says Ironside and every weld bead on every joint in every bay was mine. The boy was mine too, not by theft, not by silence, not by a deal made on a porch while someone else bled on the concrete, by choice. By every morning I woke up and put on the mask and struck the arc and built something real with these hands that smell like slag and hold a torch and raised a son who catches fly balls with a dead man's glove and does not shove other kids off bikes. Gage looked up from the pocket, morning light on his face, Danny's leather warm in his hand. The scab on his elbow from the driveway was gone. New skin. Clean. "Mom, can I start the bike today?" After breakfast, he punched the glove one more time. The sound echoed off the bay walls, off the steel I cut and bent and welded, off the doors I hung and the gate I programmed and the fence I built, and it came back clean. The way a sound comes back clean when it bounces off something solid, something that belongs to you. "Okay," he said, and he went back to punching the pocket, keeping time, keeping the leather soft, keeping Danny's hand alive inside a glove that fits him a little more every season. That is what real family looks like when you build it yourself.